I was gonna wait until I went back to this incredible location to cover this city again. But there are so many buildings here in this location that we're just gonna start in on this place right now. Welcome back to Edinburgh, Scotland, where we know about the Scots Monument. We've talked about it a little, but today we are gonna be going even deeper into the narrative and the buildings surrounding it, including the Caledonian, a 5-star hotel in Edinburgh, Scotland, that holds a narrative that will show the world how childish and beyond immature the mainstream narrative really is. A narrative that, if it was ever trusted in your mind, should be done being trusted after what I show you next. A hotel that had a master architect by the name of John Moore Dick. If you can believe that one, where we have seen these ridiculous names so many times before. In my opinion, they are just total jokes, where they were probably laughing while entering that name into the story. And this whole thing was just supposedly constructed in 4 years. And of course, they have to throw the fire narrative right into the story, where the hotel was built on top of the stone, V-shaped station building that had recently been built as a replacement for the previous wooden station, which was of course damaged in a fire in June of 1890. And right next to this building, we have the Scots Monument. That's now a monument that you can't miss while walking around Edinburgh, all supposedly dedicated to a writer, Sir Walter Scott, because we just whip these things together for writers nowadays. No, we don't. One of the largest monuments dedicated to a writer in the world, in my personal opinion, based on everything that we've seen. This was not created for a writer. This was here much longer than we are told, especially when we are told that Scott died in 1832, and 4 years later, 188 years ago. They just had so many master architects just hanging around the city that they were able to hold a competition, and the winner drew this up and knocked it out no problem, all for a writer that we only have a painting of. Now, we have a massive flaw in the narrative when we see that there is a monument of Sir Walter himself, a marble statue, fashioned from a single piece of marble. Now, the sculptor took 6 years just to sculpt this little tiny statue. And it's not even the same material or color as the rest of the structure, which is odd in itself. In my opinion, it was put there by our civilization. Yet, the entire monument supposedly took 8 years. Yet, in all of the construction photos, the thing is done, as we have seen all over the world. And when we take a look at this photo, you can see the bottom of the photo is showing something in the dirt. Is this thing bigger than we can see under the ground? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And we have a few more photos that are very interesting, with none of it looking like it was brand new at all. Here's another photo from the area where we can clearly see an obelisk and the Edinburgh Castle in the background, which we have gone inside of in episode 8. Now, this entire city is insane. If you've gone to Harry Potter Land at Universal Studios, you are getting ripped off. All you gotta do is go to Edinburgh for the real thing. I'm just gonna show you this city on Google Earth for a minute. All right, so if we go over here, right across the road, we have the museum on the mound, which we are told has an extensive basement area, where we know that these buildings most likely are all connected underground. We have shown this in Wisconsin. And if they're connected in Wisconsin, then they are definitely connected here in Scotland. Built over 220 years ago and completed in just 5 years. And this is what we're told. Even faster than the Scots Monument little statue. It's incredible. And the owner of this building is the Bank of Scotland. Another bank that gets an old world building. And we continue over here. We have what looks like a church, but they had so many of these structures that they just called this one a meeting place of the General Assembly. And they admit it. It looks like a church, but it's never actually been a church. And now, well, it's called the Hub, where they hold events. Just a nice place to hold events. So that's a first for me. I've never seen where they just have so many church-looking buildings that they just need to use it for something else. And this one was constructed in just 5 years. Also taking less time than that little statue at Scott's Monument. And the clock was, of course, built by a guy and his son, which we've seen all over the world. The sons of the 1800s just knew how to get the job done. These buildings, this city, it is incredible. When I went there last time, I didn't know much about this topic, but even having very little knowledge of the subject compared to now, I knew that I was looking at something incredible the entire time. I really can't imagine what we would find if we went back. I think it would be a lot of fun. So right over here, right next to all of this, we have this massive castle where the mainstream narrative now just gets wild. Predating Donkeys Incorporated. Predating the 1800s masterminds. When the story's beginnings are from 931 years ago. When they know that the queen died there in the year 1093. And then they had to wait 418 years to get anything else done when the Great Hall was finally completed for King James IV, where the king had little time to enjoy his new addition because he died 2 years later. And this is all documented. We have the paperwork on all of this. No. 1566, James VI comes around. And we've talked about the reoccurring names. And this is, in my opinion, another example of this, with brother-in-laws that are also named Henry VIII. And then we get a 13-month-old king. When 1603 rolls around, now the mainstream narrative is very entertaining if you really believe it. It's like a good sitcom. So James VI, the 13-month-old king that we are told about from 400 years ago, born in a castle and loved witchcraft. So we can see how close this all is to the Scots Monument. And right down the street, we just have palace after palace after palace. Have we found a place that is a better example of the old world that's possibly taking over my #1 spot over Budapest? This place is incredible. Located at 1 Prince's Street, we have the Balmoral, or originally the North British Station Hotel, a 167-room palace hotel where they needed another competition to knock out another palace. Can you believe this? They had so many master architects in the 1800s, while people were riding around on donkeys, saddling up to ride around town, with wagons attached to the back. They hold these competitions to construct massive palaces that last forever. Palaces that you don't see being constructed today in any of our towns. Yet, they were just supposedly throwing them together all over the place, over and over and over. Built in just 6 years, from 1896 to 1902. So the exact same amount of time that it took to build the statue over at Scott's Monument. I definitely want to stay here in this hotel one day, in the near future. And if I do, I'll make sure to share all about it. I want to see the inside and hopefully take a tour and see if these places have a basement. All right, and then we're going to zoom out on Google Earth and see that they have multiple golf courses. Now, I know this is where we were told that golf originated in Scotland, but we also know that golf courses cover a lot of land. And we've seen multiple times how golf courses are most likely covering something up from the old world, like we have shown in our Balboa Park episodes, episode 55 and episode 56, as well as episode 33. There's something interesting going on here for sure, and we are just getting started today. Welcome to episode 67 of my lunch break. I hope you're all having a great day, and if you're new, welcome. And I want to thank all of our sponsors over on Patreon. Thank you to FlatEarthDave.com. You can check out his app. I'll put the link in the description, and you can use my referral code, MLB. He also has my lunch break on the homeschool section of the app, which is really cool. Thank you to Rebecca K, Don Gaston, Christopher Arietta, The Lady Lacey Show, David and Sherry Ferguson, Edwin Johnson, Chuck Templeton, Joy Lee, PNR, Stephanie Nolan, The Burlesons, Suez KC, Dan Woodall, Dale, DJ Clicktrack, Edward and Brianna, Jacob Law, Jim Ribley and Christine Duggan, Kyle Glascock, Tim Rack, William Richard Jeffries V, PKTFnews.org, Regna Saturna, Dendries NL, Juana Mesher, Sirius Feline, G Power, Natalie Shippenoff, TheGoldenTeacher.co, Amberson EMC, Blake, HK Sue, Isaac Wright, Melissa Edgar, Biggles, Clayton Lamar, Ultimus Maximus, Lee Anderson, Noble Task Homestead, John Adams, My Hubby is Awesome, Rick Tapkey, Ryan and Laney Benner, The Arnolds, 3D6 Space, Attila Power, Buck Suey, Dakota Dunn, Eric Martinez, Ivan Apoctoli, Jesse DeLeon, Jim Bro, Kit Kat, Todd K, Edwin Rice, Helmut, Charles Kruger, Daniel Zid, Glenn Gunderson, Pacific Crafted, HaggardT-shirts.com, Meta, Jason Hochberg, Marie C, Roy Schoenholtz, Wayne T, James Alt, Dan McGee, Vince Moreno, Samir Schwery, Stony Stargod, Roz Matthews, Shiba Shaba in the Darkness. You guys are all awesome and helping this channel out a lot. Now, we showed the obelisk, which is located at Kelton Hill, right next to everything that we've shown today. And this is when we get the connection, where we get the Robert Burns Memorial, where there is a life-size statue of Burns himself. Burns himself. Burns himself? Really? Is this not another fire narrative, throwing it right into his name, like we've seen with F.L. Ames or Flames? And then the monument is, of course, no longer publicly accessible. And we all know this story revolves around Robert Burns. Yet the name Robert is thrown in a few more times, just to make sure that the clue has been given. When we see Robert Ferguson and Robert Louis Stevenson, what are the odds that we get like 5 people's names in a short story, yet 3 of the 5 names are the exact same name over and over, all over the world? In my opinion, that is not possible, that this would happen over and over and over. There is without a doubt in my mind something to these repeating names. And what is with all these dates of construction? I thought we were told that everything in Europe was built hundreds of years ago. That is the narrative that we are told. Yet, these construction dates, all in the 17 and 1800s, are all at the exact same time as all of the construction that is going on over in the USA. Besides for this massive castle that had a story about a 13-month-old baby king. That sounds a lot like a tale if you ask me. It's very interesting that we get palaces in Europe, all over Edinburgh, that look so much older than the buildings in the USA, and so many more of them in such a confined area, literally walking distances, yet they are supposedly built at the exact same time as the ones in the USA, like we've been told today. So let's just keep this in mind as we continue. So then we go over to the assembly rooms, located on 54 George Street, also in Edinburgh. And it's just building after building in this city, where they tell us that the building was designed by a guy named John Henderson. And this guy won a competition in 1781. So we have another contest between all of the master architects of the 1700s. Not only that, but we are also told that Henderson died before the building was done, which we have also seen over and over and over. And you can't leave the fire narrative out of it. When they extend the building in 1818 and William Byrne is chosen. So they didn't burn this one down, but they made sure to throw a burn in there. And of course, the government has taken over this building as well. And I'm just gonna show you all another example of this so that you understand what I'm talking about. And you know it's not just a one-off. When we click on a random castle in Dalmeny, Scotland, and they throw this sentence in here, which overlook the grazings around the mouth of the Cockle Burn. Or we go over to the Bute House, the official residence of the First Minister of Scotland. We're in the middle of this AI-generated story, in my opinion, of course. They throw in this hotel switch-up, where Ullman died in 1826, but the hotel continued to operate under the new ownership of his widow, Mrs. Grace Ullman, where her maiden name is, you guessed it, Burns. The Dalmeny House, where they have commissioned Robert Adam to design a new house. And in 1788, Robert Byrne helped out. They throw this in. We're the son of the third Earl, repeating names. And further plans were commissioned in 1805 with 2 more Williams and another Byrne. So we get Robert and William Byrne and 2 Williams, a 3rd Earl, and a 4th Earl. Oh, and of course, another William Wilkins down here. And you can't forget about Robert Adam and Robert Byrne as well. And this is all one paragraph, like we've seen all over the world with these buildings narratives. I'm surprised they didn't throw a 5th Earl in there, just for fun. And the interiors section, that section holds some names for everyone, if you'd like to find those in there yourself. And let's have some fun today. Let's show how insane this all really is. When we stay in Scotland for all of this, we're still in Edinburgh. We have the Kirk of the Canongate, where in 1863, fire damaged the church and probably destroyed the Canongate's records. Probably. Maybe. But the mainstream narrative is forever unsure when we know that they probably still have these records, and we are probably not being shown these records. We can even go to the Craig House, located at Craig House Road, also in Edinburgh, where the original house, we are told, burned down in a fire in 1544, on the dot. They have all of the documents for that. No, the Cuthbert's Church, Edinburgh, which I'm gonna tie this whole thing back in, where it is located right next to the hotel that we talked about at the start of this episode, the Caledonian. And we know that that hotel held a fire story in 1890. Well, St. Cuthbert's Church had some conflicts, we are told, where there was a fire set to the church in 1573. And not only did they have this fire, we are also told that in 1689, the church was damaged again by cannon fire from the castle. There are a few more locations that I cannot wait to share with you, but I want to visit and see them in person. So I will save those buildings for that episode. Let's take a minute and thank all of our badge members, all of our Patreons, and every single subscriber. You are all awesome in helping grow this channel to a bigger and bigger audience every single week. I'm also very thankful for everybody that likes the video as well. That really helps the channel. And next week, I'm going to be starting a brand new series, one that should make this research even more entertaining, exposing cities all over the world. So I really look forward to that beginning for all of us. Now, I was really under the impression that the narrative was that in Europe, these buildings were all constructed in the 1500s or earlier. So it's really interesting to see that they were also, so we are told, being thrown together at the exact same time as the ones in the USA. Yet they are all so incredible and all so close to each other. Whereas in the USA, they are spread out across all the states. So here we have the Drum, which we are told had previous houses on the exact same site. And this will be my closing statements for this episode. You are all free to think what you like, as always, but the repetition is overwhelming in my opinion. Once you see the truth, there is no going back. So here we go. In 1584, he commissioned the mason architect to build a new house. The house was built in 1 year, with it being damaged by fire some years later, and again in 1629. But of course, we are told that it was rebuilt each and every time. Hundreds of years ago, no problem at all.